Welcome back to rLounge. If you're someone who is used to saying yes, it will take courage to say no, especially if the person pushing you doesn't give up easily. You might feel like you're a bad person, or that you're letting someone down, or not living up to expectations. Maybe you'll imagine that you'll be seen or talked about in a negative light. But those things might be the cost of reclaiming your life, and the people will respect you for it. First up, know your no, especially when it comes to your mother-in-law. Advice, please. My mother-in-law tried to ruin my wedding and is now making our life hell. Hi, first I'm posting here. I genuinely need advice as all my family unanimously hates my mother-in-law and don't want to speak to her about her, so aren't really helpful. It's a fairly long story, but I'll try to keep it short. My husband and I met over 2 years ago and got married a few months ago. Things started off fairly well. My family really adores my husband, and my mother-in-law was okay, mostly, until we got engaged. A little bit of history to my mother-in-law, just so you get the full picture. She is a single mother to my husband. My husband is an only child. My husband's father was married, still is, when my mother-in-law got pregnant, and he didn't want to leave his wife. Let me just clarify by saying I do not have a problem with this at all, but I'm just padding out the story for you. As a result of my husband's father being married and not wanting to leave his wife, although he did want to fully financially and emotionally support his son, and this my mother-in-law does admit to. My mother-in-law moved house and refused to tell my husband's father where she had gone and cut off all contact with father and son and has continued this ever since. My mother-in-law is also an alcoholic and has never worked. Now, I absolutely understand addiction. However, this has left my husband to be sole provider for the household since he was 13. He went to school and held down a job, and he worked his socks off and went to university, all while still working full-time and sending his paycheck back home to his mother for her to promptly spend a lot of alcohol and then ask for more, often resorting to emotional manipulation to get him to give her money he didn't have so that she could spend it on alcohol all over again. His mother is in her early 60s and was in her mid-30s when she had him, so by no means a child, just in case you're wondering. When my husband and I met and decided to save on the deposit for a house and our wedding, my husband spoke to her and said that the money he was sending her would have to come to an end. He put her through a substance misuse program and paid for a counselor and helped her get a job. Wrote her CV, she struggles to read and write, bought her an outfit for an interview, etc., before his payments to her came to an end, which I feel is more than fair. So my mother-in-law felt that it was my fault that the payments were coming to an end because her son had always given her all his attention and now his attention was diverted. So herein started the campaign of emotional manipulation. Now, this was all in the lead up to our wedding. We had been engaged for about 7 months when my husband was attacked and suffered a terrible head injury. He survived and is now mostly okay. However, it was hugely traumatic for us both, and after much discussion with my family, who were very supportive, we decided to get married much sooner than we had originally planned. My parents offered to pay for the majority of this and also paid for the deposit of a house in a safer neighborhood. So suddenly, we were getting married in 4 months. All my family were thrilled as they adore my husband and treat him like their own. I had not shared details of my mother-in-law with them at this point, and she had never met them, as despite many invitations, she was mostly too drunk to drive to see them. Anyway, this is where things crank up a notch. In those 4 months, she went full monster-in-law. I'm going to do a quick list of the highlights. We were having a traditional English countryside upper-middle-class wedding. Black tie, morning suits, and all women to wear hats. My mother-in-law originally bought a neon orange and white beach cover-up Crafton to wear, although my husband later spent £700 on an outfit for her to wear as she refused to wear anything else if she had to pay for it. The guest list, due to COVID, was a total of 12 people, including bride and groom. My husband and his mother are their only family. My husband did have a best man, though. Due to this, the other 9 people were my family. I did not have bridesmaids or a maid of honor, as my best friend could not get to the wedding in time due to working across the globe. This was explained to her time and time again that it was family only. My mother-in-law screamed at us down the phone and then invited a bunch of her friends that I have never met and told them all to just turn up, and we couldn't stop them. She made one woman's daughter, whom I have never met, my bridesmaid, and bought her a bright turquoise gown from the charity shop to wear and told her just to turn up. Our color scheme was emerald and gold, just for reference. This bridesmaid proceeded to be vile to me and stated multiple times that when my mother-in-law told her the plan, the only reason she agreed to it was she thought my family were well off and would buy her designer clothes. My father, on learning what my mother-in-law was trying to do, set up security at the wedding and a strict guest list, and went to speak to my mother-in-law to say that this was unacceptable, and although he would not uninvite her, she could consider everyone else uninvited. My mother-in-law slammed the door in his face. She turned up without warning to our house multiple times to scream at us or our lovely neighbors, and try to find out my parents' address so she could scream at my dad for uninviting her friends. We did not give her the address. There were many more things besides this, but these are the highlights. So the day of the wedding comes. Every male member of the wedding heads to the church 4 hours in advance to beef up the security and make sure these people do not turn up. I try not to worry. My husband and I have a beautiful day and all is mostly well. My family are dignified, and although they are now obviously aware of her behavior, they are polite to her. One uncle, the most beloved and kind uncle, makes it his mission to keep her occupied the entire day. He is mostly very successful in his mission. However, upon leaving the church, everyone has been given confetti to throw. She pulls down the front of my strapless wedding dress, exposes my breasts to everyone, and dumps the entire basket of confetti down the front of my dress over my naked breasts, laughs, throws the basket at me, and then says, "Well, someone had to wipe that smile off your face." She was escorted out by my uncle and brother, who were very calm considering what had happened. She turned up at the hotel where we were having our reception and made a huge fuss to be let in. It was decided that she would be let in so she would quiet down, but that no alcohol was to be given to her as she was supposed to be driving home. My uncle continued to do his best to keep her happy and occupied. After the wonderful food and speeches, and my family sitting on the opposite side of the room to her, my husband stood up to do his speech. She pushed him back down to his chair, stood up and declared, "You all should be ashamed. My brother had just died and this is how you're celebrating." My family and I did not even know she had a brother, and that's how estranged they were. They had not spoken in years, and although still very sad, we simply did not know. He also had passed away some months before, so very odd that she had not mentioned it beforehand. My husband also did not know his uncle had passed away until that moment, so that was also a horrible shock for him. She then proceeded to get drunk on the vodka she had brought in her handbag and tried to do her best to sleep with or seduce my uncle, whose wife, my godmother, was sat at the other end of the table. Suffice to say, my uncle and aunt were not impressed. For this reason and a few other reasons since the wedding, her getting COVID and not telling us and trying to come around at Christmas despite me being severely immunocompromised, and then threatening to kill herself when my husband found out and wouldn't let her in. My mother-in-law screaming down the phone at my husband saying she wished my husband had been the one to die instead of her brother. For all of these reasons, my husband and I, and all my family, do not speak to her or indulge her at all anymore. She continues to harass my husband and I by turning up at the house, ringing up 10 times in the middle of the night, obviously drunk, demand money from us, or just generally be emotionally abusive. This has gone on for months and I can't take it anymore. It wears me down. Every day there are more threats of suicide, and my husband spends hours on the phone with the emergency services, trying to make sure she's okay. We both do. I don't want to see her hurt or anything, but the emotional drain of it is too much for me. So I need your advice. Do I fold and try to talk to her about her behavior and hope she calms down a bit, whilst not being her best friend? Or do my husband and I continue to ignore her and just hope she gives up? Or is there an alternative option that we could explore? Thanks for reading. First of all, I'm so sorry she assaulted you like that at your own wedding. I'm also shocked to read that she was allowed to attend the reception following that incident. Moreover, when she brought up the death of her brother, it seems like she was just trying to draw attention away from you, your husband, and the big day. It's like you said, your husband is focused on you now, and your mother-in-law sees that very much as a threat. Therefore, she will do whatever she can to draw attention to herself, with the extra bonus of humiliating you. She's used to her husband taking care of her, but that's toxic in itself. Your husband supporting her financially has meant that she has been able to behave this way and get away with things for quite some time, only reinforcing her negative behavior. It makes sense that she's acting out against you both now that your husband has drawn the line. Given her erratic behavior and what she did to you at your own wedding, I'm not sure it's worth trying to talk to someone who is so unhinged. Alcoholism is a disease, and I'm not sure she would be capable of listening until she properly addressed that. Rather than ignore her, I think the option would be to set clear boundaries, continue to say no, and advocate for her to seek help. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Our first thought comes from Roxy McFly. I would move. If you can't, get cameras and a restraining order for harassment if you can. Your husband needs to realize that the threats of suicide are for attention, and if she actually tries to, then she needs to be put in a psych ward for treatment. She knows if she threats, he will try to help, so she will keep doing it. Get your husband into therapy. But moving and her not knowing where you live will bring peace, and I would block her number. The OP responds, "Thank you. I just sometimes feel so tired with it all. It's good to know that it's not all in my head." Next comment from Goats Are Our Overlords. You need to document and get a restraining order. This is harassment. What she did to you at your wedding was assault. Plain and simple, if you continue to allow her to harass you, she will either escalate until she physically harms one or both of you, or your marriage will not survive. Get a lawyer, file a cease and desist, get a restraining order, and if need be, sell your house and move and change your phone numbers. Her threats of suicide or self-harm are to control you. She will continue to do this as it's the only way she can control you now. Up next, flexing that no muscle. 2 sets of 15 reps of no way, mommy dearest. Mother-in-law keeps putting an ugly brown bathroom mat in my living room as decor. My mother-in-law, Olga, loves discount stores and bought brown non-skid latex-backed bath mats at one a couple of years ago. Olga didn't want the mats in her place, so she decided that I would find the room for them in my home. After I said no to the bath mats the first time, they continued to pop back up in my home as area rugs or as front door mats after her visits. I finally impressed upon my husband that I would toss the mats if Olga ever snuck them back into my house. She became tearfully indignant at the suggestion and asserted that she needs to keep the mats displayed in my home so they're accessible when she takes my daughters to the park. According to Olga, I'm risking my daughter's future fertility by sending them to the park in snowsuits with stroller blankets for the baby. The rubber backing is now a safety necessity. The added insulation, I guess? She is actually using one of these now grizzled and nasty mats to cover my baby. We compromised and allowed her to keep one in the stroller. But last night she came for my husband's birthday celebration and left her backup brown mat in my living room again. I tossed the thing out on my lawn, so angry. Update. Today, I ordered a nice faux sheepskin stroller liner and portable stadium cushions my mother-in-law can carry with her in her bag. In other words, she will have no excuse to continue using the fugly bath mats. Then, I told my husband that he needs to communicate to his mom that if the mats turn up again at my home, I will toss them. You sound very patient and sympathetic toward Olga. She's lucky to have you as a daughter-in-law. It's great that you bought a faux sheepskin liner so as to avoid Olga from coming up with excuses, such as safety and infertility for the baby. Furthermore, the bath mats seem like a test to see just how far she can take things with you. It sounds like if you keep putting your foot down, Olga will eventually respect that. It's a game to her. If your husband also communicates to his mother about his dislike for the bath mats, then that will only reinforce the boundaries that you have created. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Assert your dominance. Our first reaction comes from Pipsqueak409. According to Olga, I'm risking my daughter's future fertility by sending them to the park in snowsuits and with the stroller blankets for the baby. Oy vey, this woman's thought process makes her sound like she's a French fry short of a Happy Meal. Why leave the ugly mat on the lawn for her to retrieve and place back in your home when you're not looking? Throw it and all her ugly mats in the dumpster behind your nearest grocery store. Next thought from LongJumping23357. Who puts bath mats in a living room? They sound hideous to begin with, and even if they weren't, you still have the right to decorate your home the way you want, and her insistence on covering your child with them is just plain ridiculous. Toss the mats and be done with it before she or your husband can do anything about it. If Olga has a tantrum, block her or direct her to her son. Her reaction is not your problem to deal with. Thank you so much for joining us today at rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out on our juicy content. If you have feedback on today's stories, please let us know in the comments below. We value you and what you have to say. Until next time.